This is the MBK Beat with Mark Kashevsky, your place for finding out all you need to know about life insurance and how you can get more out of your money. Coming live from Buffalo, New York, it's time for the MBK Beat with Mark Kashevsky.
Hey folks, my name's Jeremy. I'm here today with Mark Kashevsky from MBK and Associates Incorporated, and we are here for the second episode of the MBK Beat, where we talk everything life insurance and basically anything you need to know. Mark is the guy here in Western New York and in this region. So we wanted to talk a little bit today about transferring as opposed to a traditional IRA into a Roth IRA, which is, seemingly more normal, more widely known. You have a few things that would actually probably net someone a little bit more income, and obviously a lot more reasons why someone may do this. But who are we, who should be listening today, Mark? Because I know you can help a wide range of people, but specifically to today's episode, who should really be tuning in for some of these bites as we enter into today's episode?
Probably the primary focus, Jeremy, would be people that are within 10 years of retirement in terms of getting income out of their pension plan. Ideally, someone 59, 60, all right? We do work with people that are younger to do some of these transfers, but from a tax standpoint, making the transfer to a Roth type strategy really works well for someone right around 59 or 60. And the reason for that is if you're going to implement a Roth from a traditional IRA or from a 401k type strategy, you're not subject to the 10% premature distribution penalty, which goes away after age 59 and a half. You still have income tax to pay on this transfer into a Roth, but you eliminate that additional tax.
And now what we were going to get into today, this would be an index universal life program?
Correct. In a traditional Roth strategy, and by the way, let me just back up a little bit.
Sure.
The reason people are looking at this strategy is because do I want to convert to a Roth and pay my taxes today, or do I want to pay them later? And the nexus of that question revolves around future tax rates. Now, I don't know what's going to happen in the election. Either tax rates may stay the same or they may go up. But ultimately, when you look at our deficit, you look at all the COVID spending, trillions, we're not talking billions, we're talking trillions of dollars. Ultimately, these taxes are going to have to be paid, and or these cash distributions are going to have to be paid. So most people feel that long-term taxes are going to go up for everybody, not just at the federal level, but at the state level. How's New York State going to pay? This year, New York State, before COVID hit, there was a $6 billion deficit that was never addressed.
And that was before, obviously.
That was before COVID.
Right.
And so a lot of these states are between a rock and a hard place. So are taxes going up? Most probably. So people say, well, if you've got these lump sum of money, if you've got a substantial 401k or IRA, you maybe need to look at doing a conversion today and, getting tax-free income out of your Roth when you do take the money out later. And if you look at a current tax rate, if you take a person who say, whether it's a 30 or 40% tax rate, and you take money out of an IRA when you retire, or you convert it and pay the tax now and take it when you retire, you're going to get about the same income. The question is, if rates go up, that all falls apart. So that's the primary reason for looking at a Roth. Pay your taxes today while taxes are lower and net more income later on. If I can continue, the other issue is, so okay, we have a Roth IRA now. and we address the tax risk. But there's two other risks in any type of 401k, IRA, or Roth IRA that traditional plans do not address. One is investment risk. The majority of your 401k and IRAs are invested in stock market mutual funds because you want that money to grow, but you also, what if there's a 20 or 30% hit to the market? Traditional Roths or IRAs or 401ks do not really address that investment risk issue. And as people get older, they still want to get growth, but you've got to weigh that against investment risk. And then the third issue, and as people get older, this becomes a bigger issue as well, is how long will my money last? People look at, if I take a 5% distribution, how long will that last? 6%. A lot of financial planners this day are saying, those numbers are too high. You need to maybe look at a 4% distribution. So you have a large pile of money. You're telling me in $1 million account, I need to only take out $40,000. So you have tax risk, you have investment risk, and longevity risk. So a traditional IRA or a traditional Roth IRA only address the first issue. When you start looking at current insurance products, we can structure some of these products to give you another alternative.
And with some of these alternatives and some of my sort of novice research, obviously it was clear that some of the benefits were receiving some of that money potentially before retirement. I know that was one of the sort of notable elements. And then obviously the lower risk. The last one, sort of greater after-tax retirement distributions. Can you sort of break that down a little bit for our listeners, like how that would? Because how would maybe getting some of that money before retirement versus an IRA, and then the greater after-tax distributions later? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, once you convert a Roth IRA, whether it's before 59 and a half or after 59 and a half, into what I call an overfunded indexed contract, well, that cash value is available for any reason, not just retirement. Okay. Because when we use our Roth alternative with an indexed contract, we're not subject to any of the Roth rules going forward. So that's number one. But more importantly, how do we get more money out of a contract? When you look at the same amount of money, if you were to take $1 million, convert it to a Roth and net $600,000, versus taking the $1 million, paying the tax, and putting it into our alternative, we're going to generate a significantly higher amount of annual income for life. We're talking 20, 30% more.
Over a longer period of time, but greater
for life,
long term.
For a lifetime.
Until death.
Until death, and a higher amount. So how can we do that? That's really, how can you do that?
Right, yeah, I guess that's the magic question is how the hell.
What's the magic sauce here?
Yeah.
I mean, well, when you start taking money out of a mutual fund, once you take that money out, that money's gone, and you're just getting income on what's left. It doesn't work that way in an indexed universal life contract. And that's what's extremely unique about this financial product. There is not another financial product on earth that can do what these contracts can do. And that is, if we've accumulated $1 million after, let's say we convert the money at 60, we go from $1 million to $600,000 after tax, and we let that money grow. And at age 70, there's $1 million on the account. And I use those numbers not to scare people, but you can, well, what if I had half, or what if I had 25%, what if I had double? You can just do the math, okay, proportionally. So if we now are at 70 and we converted our Roth to our Roth alternative, we paid $400,000 in tax. Now we have $600,000 at age 60. It grows to $1 million. All right, and we're typically projecting under 6%, about just under 6%, 5.67% are some of the calculations we use to get there. In 10 years, you'll have $1 million. Right now, if you did the same thing in a Roth and got a traditional Roth and got that, you'd have the same amount of money. But now we're going to start taking income out. And we show on some of our calculations with a Roth, you can afford to take out $60,000 a year.
Because there's a limit, correct?
No, there's no
Or
limit.
no?
But how do you keep that money in a traditional Roth? Getting between 5 and 6% at age 70. If you want to keep that money there, you want to keep that income stream there till the day you die, till age 100. It's about $60,000. It's about a 6% withdrawal. Okay, so the Roth will do that. A traditional Roth. We're able to get between $80,000 and $100,000 a year on the same money. It's actually closer to $100,000 at the same interest rate. And here's the reason why: is because when we're distributing money to you, we're creating two accounts. We create what's known as a loan regime on an insurance contract, which makes the distributions tax-free under the tax code. But that money isn't coming out of your account. You're actually using your part of your $1 million as collateral for the insurance company to give you a loan. So we're able to continue to earn interest on the full amount, and that amount continues to grow as opposed to go down. And when you understand that counterintuitive thought, it's a huge, huge difference. That we're keeping your account growing, and the money's coming from a third party, the insurance company, bank, so to speak, that collateralizes your account, but you've got a loan with the bank, with the insurance company, and your money continues to grow. So that's how we can afford to pay you more. And how is that money paid off? At death, because there's an underlying death benefit that extinguishes the loan at death. None of this happens with a mutual fund. All right. So because we're able to create a loan regime and get a third-party insurance, quote-unquote, bank to loan you the money, keep your investment growing, we can pay you more money because it's fully collateralized and it's only paid off at death. So it's from a financial product standpoint, it's a huge, huge game changer.
So what would keep someone out there listening today from taking a step? Would it be, just sort of intimidation, or some of this might be a little bit foreign to someone? What would be keeping somebody from doing something like this? Or is this sort of a new kind of workaround?
Well, it's a new strategy because these contracts 10, 15 years ago didn't exist. Probably about 15, 16 years ago is when these contracts came into being. And over time, they've added contractual provisions and benefits that have created the various contractual provisions that allow me to say with a straight face, this works.
Right.
Okay, there's three or four contractual provisions in these IUL contracts that are game changers that make this work and prevent it from blowing up.
Right.
And it's something people just, it's kind of like, I was to use an analogy, 20 years ago, there's something called the internet that nobody knew anything about. Mm-hmm. It was kind of brand new. I mean, my daughter, 20 years ago, yeah, she was in college. She goes back, 20 plus years ago.
Oh, yeah.
She was at Georgetown, and we went down for Parents' Weekend, and we went to a lecture on something new called the internet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, we're still using faxes.
Yeah. Right.
We had car phones, but no cell phones.
Yeah.
It was like the internet. What's this?
Right.
Well, I mean, that's how new this product is. It's a game changer in the insurance planning field. And when people say, "Well, it's too good to be true," when you drill down and go through not only the numbers, but you look under the hood on these products and see how they work and connect the dots, and it's legit. I mean, we can demonstrate this to a client and or to their accountant,
right?
And say this is the real deal.
Yeah, I think that really wraps up. As long as you didn't have any more detail on the specific plan.
Yeah, there's one other thing that changed. That these people were looking at this concept a few years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, but a fiduciary rule for investment advisors came in that kind of took this idea off the table. But that rule has changed in the last year that makes this allowable under investment advisory rules. So, I wasn't really discussing this concept until about a year ago, and this really was considered kosher from an investment advisory insurance.
Yeah, right. And obviously being something that's newer, and you were mentioning like the internet, I just got me sort of thinking, having been in this industry from before the internet to now, you've obviously seen this from every different angle over the years. And, seeing something like this pop up has to get you sort of, excited to offer it to someone knowing that it works. I mean, obviously that's a good feeling when you sort of see the proof in the pudding. So if somebody wanted to just at least, take a look at something like this, what would it take, to get started? You mentioned like speaking with an accountant, obviously someone might be a little intimidated to start letting someone in, so what, obviously you would know the answer to that question better than me.
In terms of getting this message out, we're really, obviously we have this podcast, but I'm meeting on a regular basis now with financial advisors who don't do a lot of insurance work, but are licensed to do that, to really get them to understand really how can we do this, because it really does address all these issues of tax, investment risk, and longevity risk. One thing we didn't talk about is how does address the investment risk. And these contracts are designed so that when you put your money in them, you can never lose your principal or earnings. Every year, the insurance carrier earns money on your cash, and they give you the option. Do you want a guaranteed rate, or do you want us to take that net earnings and buy options on the S&P index? And if the index is in the money, you're on the upside. If they're not, everything stays the way it is. So the worst you can do is zero. And when you look at performance of this concept versus a mutual fund index account, dramatically better without any downside. So that's how it addresses the investment risk. But how do we get started? Well, we're meeting on a regular basis with CPAs to educate them on this, so they're referring clients to us. But also, if a client comes to us and has a significant investment account, or I have my own clients, I'm telling them about this, saying, let me take a look at some of your qualified plan money and show you how this works and see what you think about it. And if you like it, we'll sit down and talk to your CPA about it and get your financial advisor and get buy-in from the people. Ultimately, it's the client's decision, but we're here to be transparent. And going back to, my focus is how can we, with insurance planning strategies, whether it's this or some other concept, add value to your existing, environment, and put you in a better place. That's all we're trying to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, without risk. It sounds like with that no loss of principal, rather than, I mean, there's a million different ways, I'm sure, and I'm obviously a little bit on the younger side, and I'm learning with every podcast. But it seems as though that the lack of risk, that would be, if I was a millionaire, that would be obviously something of importance to me. And then the transparency of something new, yet something, obviously life insurance has been around forever, but being able to work with someone that sort of was around before the internet / the new era, because I had my mother worked for years in mortgages around Western New York, and she retired just a year or two ago, and towards the end of her career she was having to do a lot of transitional, it was going a lot more from person to person in relationship to just filling out an application online, and then she would be having to talk to someone. So sort of in a way, like, to wrap up, what would you have to say about how just the world has changed in the way that relationships are built and established and retained, since the beginning of your career in this industry till now?
Well, at the end of the day, I still think it's a relationship business when you're dealing with people's money, taxes, or legal issues. And, people want to know, and this is really how I try to run my practice. Do we like each other? Can you trust this person? Um, does he know what he's talking about? And, can he help me? Well, those are the questions we have to answer. And, it's really one at a time. And it's not just, do they like me? Do I like them?
Right.
It's a two-way street. So, my business is really meeting people who have these issues and going through that relationship process, identifying with them how their decision-making process is made, whether they make it, whether they bring other people in, and kind of hand-holding and one step at a time.
Right.
And that's how I've always done it. And I think, well, regardless of whether it was 20 years ago or now, that's still the case. And even though we're doing more Zoom meetings now and electronic business with the COVID situation, I mean, it's still a relationship business.
Mm-hmm.
The last comment I would make is that, when we get into this process and start looking at the numbers, we have the software to take an honest look at this and validate our numbers. So we're not there. We can back everything up we're showing. Number one. Number two, in terms of amounts, I mentioned $1 million because it's easy to say, well, we get it down to 600, it gets up to $1 million. Traditional Roth gets you 60. We can get you 80 to 100,000 a year with this construct, and also have a death benefit at the end. But we're looking at accounts, a lot of them 250, 500, some larger accounts. And we're not looking at all their money. We're looking at a portion of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of getting your toe in the water thing. So I leave that for people. That's kind of how we look at it.
Yeah.
And we're there to work with the other advisors, not to be competitors. But we will stand our ground on what we believe.
Right.
Which leads me to my last comment and maybe a segue to our next podcast.
Sure. Perfect. Getting the hang of things. All right.
This is a great concept. It's relatively new from a fiduciary and best interest standpoint and client-centered standpoint. We can now, comfortably show this to clients and advisors. But also, anybody approaching retirement, within 10 years of retirement, if they're not looking at their life insurance portfolio to say, how's it performing? What do I need to do? How can it help me in retirement? They should be looking at it. Set it and forget it is done. And there's a lot you can do. And if you're not auditing your insurance portfolio, you're missing a huge opportunity. And that's something I'd like to talk about the next time.
Perfect. I couldn't do a better segue than that. I think that's enough for today. Thanks, folks, for listening in. You can find Mark at mbkinc.co. That's mbkinc.co. You can reach out via contact form or call. Obviously, anybody interested, I think there's certain things that you can see value. We're a marketing company on my side of things, and obviously, as soon as we started hearing some of these things, it was almost too much to put into an ad or to a video or to a website. So I think the podcast model has been extremely valuable to be able to dig into some of these things. So hopefully we can continue, providing this thoughtful information for the users out there. And like Mark said, we'll be back with another episode next time where we're going to be talking just about why you should be looking at your life insurance policies, and the set it and forget it model is a thing of the past. And on that, I guess we'll wrap. Thanks, Mark.
Jeremy, thanks for your time. Thanks for your time, everybody.
Thanks, folks. We'll see you.